Canadian singer-songwriter Jordan Hart just released his debut EP, Only Pieces of the Truth. 519's Dan Boshart sits down with Jordan, but before that, let's check out a clip from his latest music video, Freedom.
I'm trying to find my freedom, freedom. I'm trying to find my freedom, freedom. Oh, oh, night, oh, night. I'm trying to find my freedom, freedom. Oh, oh, night, oh, night. I'm trying to find my freedom, freedom. Oh, oh, night, oh, night.
So your album, it's gotten a lot of interest, hasn't it?
It's been a great release. Yeah, been really
Great release. You produced this album yourself. You were encouraged by the record company to do this, weren't you?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, I'd sent this whole list of, I think I had 55 demos at the beginning when they introduced themselves to me, and a few of them were songs that I had been producing with friends of mine that are acclaimed producers and have been doing it for a long time, as well as a bunch of demos that I sort of slapped together on my own, not really considering them of the same quality. And after listening through, they recommended and encouraged me to do the first one on my own, just saying that they really loved the work that I was doing, and I thought it was a good place to start from.
So you've been at this for a while. You've done some producing for other musicians, like you said. How did you start out in music? Do you come from a musical family?
I do, yeah. The most musical family I've ever heard of, actually. Some of my earliest memories are of my mom and dad singing with their siblings around a campfire in 5-part harmony, singing classic songs like "Leaving on a Jet Plane" or "The Rose," and just having goosebumps up my arm, like even before I could really talk fully. And my uncle was in a really famous country band called Emerson Drive.
Oh, I've heard of them for sure.
Yeah, they were quite successful, and I remember like when I was like 12 years old, going to bars, way too young to be there to see them play, and he was an idol of mine for a long time.
So you had a lot of folk and country influence then growing up, but I definitely don't hear that in your music.
Oh, cool.
I do hear the John Mayer. Tell me a little bit about your the music that you listened to growing up that inspired you.
Yeah, I mean, John Mayer would be probably the biggest one that made me want to pick up a guitar, like a lot of people I know my age. But yeah, I remember really getting into, at one point, Motown music. At one point, all I was listening to was film scores. And more recently, all I seem to be able to listen to are a fellow Canadian artist named Leif Vollebeck from Ottawa, who's blowing my mind. And then another artist who I love, who kind of takes experimental roots and then just expands on it to the point where you can hardly tell that it's folk music, is Bon Iver. I'm really, really into his music as well.
I think we should mention that you're from Alberta originally. I don't think we mentioned that at the start. Are you in Alberta right now or in Toronto? You moved to Toronto about 5 years ago, right?
That's right. Yeah, I live in Toronto, but I am in Alberta at this moment, actually visiting my mom and dad. I'll be heading back in about a week.
You recently shot some videos with your brother for a couple of songs on your EP. The backdrop was absolutely gorgeous. The one song you did was in Jasper, I believe.
Yeah. I did a couple there. There was one that I did at the face of the Moline Canyon, which is just this beautiful place. This river over thousands of years carved this incredibly deep canyon into the side of the mountain. And in the summertime, you can kind of walk along it and look down on the river. But in the winter, you can actually go into the canyon itself and walk along the frozen river and just be surrounded by these massive walls on either side of you. So we shot a video there at the kind of opening of the canyon. And then the second video was for a song on my album called Freedom that we shot literally on the peak of a mountain looking over other peaks. It was a pretty inspiring place to play, to say the least, man.
So these were live recordings as well, right? So you captured the atmosphere and the nature around you with the recordings, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I noticed in the one in the canyon that the the sound just kind of, it really added like a reverb or something to the sound with all the rocks around you.
Yeah, it was
Pretty
crazy.
impressive.
It was beautiful. Yeah, we took a couple videos on our phones actually of just us like testing the echo and singing into it, and just purely natural reverb was pretty phenomenal there. Yeah.
You did one out on a dock as well. Was that also in Alberta, or was that?
It was Toronto actually. There's this you have a few different beaches along Toronto, and the I can't remember there are two past Woodbine Beach, and then after that, people start to become a little bit more sparse, and you get a little bit more space to yourself. And a buddy of mine, who's an incredible filmmaker named Alex Anthony, lives out there and had this idea of just shooting a video kind of as we shot it on this huge dock. It's actually quite long that stretches out into the water, and we were expecting to wake up, you know, really early in the morning, which we did at like 5 a.m. to get the perfect serene, like glass-like water that happens usually at that time of day. But we arrived there and the winds were going crazy. It was like almost like a hurricane that day. And you can see in the video that the waves are like crashing up. We were scared we were going to actually ruin our video equipment, but I'm glad we fought through it and took the video, because it's gotten a lot of recognition, and it's one of the most special pieces I think we've captured.
Yeah, I like the sound of the water at the beginning. It really adds to the track. Your wife's a beautiful singer as well. Did she sing on the album at all?
She did, yeah. I think on every single song, except for maybe Doc's. Her voice is in there somewhere. Yeah, she's a huge inspiration of mine for sure.
So a couple years back, you did a busking challenge. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So yeah, it was a 100-day busking challenge where I played on the street for 100 days in a row. And I've been a busker pretty much since I started my career in music. I started in the Edmonton International Airport, where they started this, I guess, passenger experience program where they brought in musicians from Edmonton to play for people who are unexpecting music, I guess, as they waited for their flights. And I just fell in love with the art, man. I just fell in love with the fact that the audience didn't expect you, so they kind of had you had an advantage where it was like kind of you could be really, really good or not as good, and the people will still be cheered up by hearing live music that they didn't expect to hear. But it was also the fact that they hadn't invested in the concert being good yet, and so they gave you really, really honest feedback. You know, the people were not afraid to let me know, especially in the beginning when I was annoying them more than making them happy. And so I was able to, you know, bounce off of these people who weren't afraid to let me know all of the different sides of who I was, and see what really was successful and connected with people. And so yeah, after years later, I'm in Toronto, just kind of getting into the music scene there, and I decided to start busking again. Played on the street a couple of times, and a friend of mine, who I met that day actually was walking by and took me out for a beer later, and was just like, man, I was so influenced by and touched by the positive energy that was created between strangers when you busk. And I was wondering what you think of trying to spin that energy over 100 days in a row to sort of, you know, increase the positivity and the sense of community in the on the streets of Toronto. And so on a whim, I just decided to do it, started the next day, and played for 100 days in a row. And the best things that came out of it was just exactly kind of what we intended, was this community that sort of latched on to the experience and was cheering me on the whole time, would come out and support the experience to the point where on day 100, we ended up actually serendipitously, we didn't plan this, we ended on Canada Day. And I busked on Woodbine Beach as the fireworks were going off. And we had a group of completely surrounded me, about 300 people that were there cheering me on and watching the fireworks as I played. It was a really, really special experience.
Well, that's pretty spectacular. And you didn't plan that at all. You didn't realize when you started it was going to end on Canada Day.
Yeah. The only reason that I started when I did actually was because I was so afraid if I didn't start the next day, I would chicken out, because it was such a huge undertaking. And so I was like, you know what, man, I got to start the next day. And it wasn't until like, I think a month or two in that it would have been a month and a couple weeks in that we like looked at when is the last day going to be. We should try to plan a big celebration. And we were like, no way. We recounted the days like 7 different times before we believed our eyes that it was actually on Canada Day. It was pretty special.
So it must have really boosted your exposure as well, of course, busking in a city the size of Toronto for 100 days straight. There was probably some challenges as well, right? What every day wasn't great.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, one of the worst days was I went out and it was still snowing because we started pretty early in the year, and we got snow a little late. And I went out and decided to take. I have a busking guitar and I have a really nice performance guitar, and I took that one out that day, which was a mistake because as soon as I opened the case, took it out, and played a few chords, it cracked from the immediate shift from the humidified room that I have to the dried winter weather, right down the middle. It just still doesn't sound the same.
Oh no.
Yeah, but other than that, there were some thunderstorms I played through, but I had to do it 100 days in a row, and I did.
Couple of your songs, you're up to like 150,000 plays already on Spotify.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to see.
What was the inspiration for your writing for these songs? Like what the title track? What's that song about?
The song is it's called "Only Pieces of the Truth." It used to be called "Whole Lot of Love," and I'm sure if you listen to the song, you'll see why I sing "Whole Lot of Love" like 7 different times in the song. But my label recommended that we not come out of the gate competing with the famous Led Zeppelin song. We might want to get a little bit more established before we try to go to that level right away. So they asked me if I could find a different lyric that I thought was inspiring that we could use as the title track, and I went through the whole song that I had written about a really close relationship in my life that between the two of them, they love each other so much, and they have this incredible history of going through some of the hardest things you can as lovers, and having some of the best highs that you can have. And I guess just through seeing them over the years of my life, seeing how just the little arguments that went unresolved added up over time and resulted in a real loss of that connection, especially at the time of when I was writing the song. And through different conversations with each individual separately, I just heard that the underlying theme was, I just want to get back to where we were. I just want to find that spark that we have in this important relationship in my life. And it was both of them that wanted the same things. And it just felt like when they brought that energy together, it was difficult for them to work through the unresolved issues that had added up over years and years and years. And that was sort of what I put myself in the shoes of one of them, and wrote from that perspective. And going through the lyrics, I found this line that was, I think, one of my favorite lines on the album. It's a really simple line, but it's just, "Words are only pieces of the truth." And it kind of described everything that I was trying to say on the album for me. It was just this fact that, as beings, our emotions and our experiences are very difficult to encompass in an imperfect language. And as beautiful as our ability to create language is, it is imperfect. And especially in today's age where so many of our conversations don't happen when we're face to face, and we can't really feel the individual we're speaking to. And so there's a lot of miscommunication that you'll see, on social media or through text, where you're just trying to discern so much meaning from these glyphs, And so it was just a reflection on two things. One, the whole album kind of centers around miscommunication in the face of how much we desire connection with each other. And two, this EP is just the beginning of sort of revealing everything that I am. I have a lot of really diverse musical interests, and I plan to explore all of them sort of in my career. And this is the beginning, only pieces of my truth. This is just sort of like just pulling back the curtain a little bit into my musical world. So I thought it was a fitting title.
Wow, that's really great. I'm looking forward to see what else is coming out of that mind of yours. The official video for that song as well was stunning. Where was that filmed?
So it was actually a old abandoned mansion in Toronto. So it's kind of a spooky place, but I can't remember exactly the story of who owned it, but it's just this massive house that has like a pool room indoors, amazing pool outside, like it's on a couple acres of land in Toronto. And nobody's been living in there for some time, and they just have been renting it out to filmmakers, usually from Hollywood, with huge budgets, to use the space for videos and things like that. But we got really lucky in that after showing the song to the owner and the manager of the property, he supported us and gave us a big discount to allow us to use this magnificent space as the backdrop to the video.
Well, that's great, because I mean, it really was stunning. Can you tell me a little bit about the charity that you were donating towards during your 100-day busking challenge?
Yeah, I would love to. It's an organization called L'Arche, and it's L'Arche, which just means the Ark in French. And it's an organization that provides loving communities for people with mental and physical disabilities. And it's been a part of my life since the beginning. My dad helped found L'Arche in Lethbridge, which is where the city I was born in southern Alberta, and then he was actually brought to Edmonton, which is why I moved there at a young age to be the executive director of L'Arche Edmonton. And during my time in this community when I was younger, I noticed a couple of things. The first one that was that people with intellectual disabilities made me extremely uncomfortable for no other reason than I think just the difference and the ability that I had to, I guess, that I had to see myself through their eyes, and how uncomfortable I thought a life would be in their shoes. And so originally when I was younger, I remember a lot of feelings of just uncomfort and sort of wanting to stand off from the community. And I've recognized that since in so many different people who don't have the opportunity to be around people with intellectual disabilities. And then as I grew older and had more time in the community, the most beautiful realization I had was that as soon as I sort of dropped that guard and just allowed myself to be in these communities with these people, I was taught to love more purely and profoundly than in any other experience in my entire life. And just gathering around this table with people who are in a community of this type results in just this love and acceptance for everyone there. They really couldn't care less that, you know, my song has 150,000 streams on Spotify, or if it had 5. It was just about, hey, you know, how I felt in that moment and who I really was in that moment. And I just have been struck by how many people in that organization are the most beautiful people I've ever met in my life. And it doesn't matter, it's an international organization, and it hasn't mattered if it's the large organization in France or Brazil, Vancouver or Toronto. It's just like this, the people that are gathered in this place and behind this cause are so beautiful. But of course, the type of people that I guess wouldn't necessarily take the mic and speak for themselves. And so in this social climate of all of these incredible conversations that are centered around social justice, and realizing that, you know, people with Down syndrome or people with fetal alcohol syndrome aren't going to necessarily take that mic up for themselves and say, hey, we deserve equal rights too. I was just inspired to sort of lend a bit of my platform and my mic to say, hey, I think these people deserve your time just as much as everyone else. And if there's one thing that I would ask people to take away from the message I'm trying to say, it's just to, you know, open your hearts in the exact same way to somebody with Down syndrome as you would to anyone else. Give them the exact equal chance. You know, don't have the preconceived notion around it, and try to work through your own personal uncomfortabilities to allow them to win your heart, just like you would allow anybody else to.
Thanks to Jordan Hart and Dan Boshart for that great interview. Check out Jordan's new EP, Only Pieces of the Truth, available now. That's all we have for you right now. We'll see you soon.